Hey, it's Blake Williams with Battle Tested, and this is story time number 39, Vulnerability. Dedicated to my wife of 24 years as of yesterday. Happy anniversary, babe. I, over the weekend, for the fourth straight year, have been privileged to attend a student-athlete leadership conference at Naperville Central High School. And an activity they did in the morning was they divided them up with their respective team. They went into a classroom, and each student was asked to answer 5 questions, taking turns, right? So one at a time speaking while the others listened and perhaps asked follow-up questions. And these 5 questions were meant to really get the student athlete to open up about things like, I remember the first question was, who besides your father, what male besides your father has had the biggest impact in your life? And so these questions were ones where the student athlete really was required to open up and be vulnerable about life and what led them to be where they are, what made them who they are today, so to speak. So although I didn't sit in the classrooms with the teams, afterwards they did a quick debrief, and each team kind of reported back what was a big takeaway. And I heard student athlete after student athlete, and these were football players, that stood up and said, hey, you know, I've played with these guys for 3 or 4 years and I know them pretty well. And I really thought I knew them well, but today I learned there's so much about them that I didn't know. And I'm hearing these stories about them, and I now just respect them more because of what some of them have gone through and overcome and what's led them to be who they are. And it was because they were being vulnerable with each other. To me, when we're vulnerable with each other, you and I, we tend to respect each other more, because I hear where you come from, you hear where I come from, and why maybe I think certain ways, why maybe I act certain ways, why maybe I respond to people in a certain way versus you. So we learn to respect each other in greater amounts. So vulnerability can be great in a team. It helps develop that respect, that trust that we need as teammates to go out there and perform better in our sport, to be better teammates. And for those of you like me who our days of being a student athlete are long gone, you know, we also have opportunities to be vulnerable. I, as a parent, have opportunities to be that with my kids. And I actually had the opportunity this weekend. My son, after a weekend of baseball, says, you know, Dad, I really hate batting at the top of the order. And rather than me just taking that in and letting him vent his feelings and express how he felt about it, I took it as a learning opportunity and really just started going too much into why we shouldn't think that way, blah, blah, blah. And I sometimes had to realize that not everything has to be a teaching moment. He was just giving me his opinion. He knew not to let that opinion affect his at-bats. I just took it too far. And I realized that night, and so the next day, I took the time when we were alone just to apologize to him. And I could tell he really respected that I was vulnerable, to point out that I messed up, and it wasn't a huge deal to him, but just that I messed up in some way, and took ownership for that and apologized. And I think we as parents sometimes feel like we can't be vulnerable with our kids because we want them to perceive us a certain way, or you know, we want to make sure that their opinions of us are a certain way, I guess. And I think it just made him respect me more as a parent, to acknowledge that, hey, I mess up too sometimes. I can take responsibility for that, and I'll try to be better next time. Because that's truly what I want him to learn as well as a young man, is you're going to make mistakes, learn from it, move on, and get better. And so that requires some vulnerability on my part. You know, if you're a leader at work, are you vulnerable when you make a mistake at work? Can you be vulnerable and take ownership for those mistakes? I guarantee you your employees will respect you more if you can be vulnerable with them. So I see nothing but benefits from being vulnerable. Can you be that? Can I be that? Hope you have a great week.